Welcome to today's episode of Soft Life Secrets. Our guest today is a remarkable individual whose journey is both inspiring and transformative. He is an acclaimed author, a motivational speaker, an educator, and a prior regional superintendent of DeKalb County, a current deputy superintendent of Clayton County School District here in Georgia. He's a proud, devoted father of two. From the depths of one of his darkest moments, he found solace and strength in the power of resilience. His belief that purpose is in the process has guided him through challenging times, leading him from demotion to promotion. Join us as we explore his journey, insights, and the lessons he has learned along the way. Please welcome Dr. Ralph Simpson. Thank you, Ralph, for joining the show. What do you think soft life means?
Well, first off, I just heard of it, about just mention of your show, and I had not actually internalized it as the thing or a concept, but just hearing it, I would define it as a space and a time or a place where you are in life, relative to growth, maturity, being very, very confident and comfortable where you are, and where you are in life. And the reason I say that is because, the older you get, the less things matter. And certainly what people think and how they feel matters less when you get older. And so if I had to define it just based upon what I'm hearing, my soft life would be drama-free. Being around qualified people and spending quality time with those individuals who have similar ideals. And that's the safe space. When you get to this point, you don't care about secrets, because here you don't care what people think. Right. So, telling and sharing, what you've done and what you do, you internalize that and interpret that how you want to. If you judge me based on it, fine. If you don't, then that's fine. It's just getting to a point of believing that those that judge don't matter and those that matter don't judge.
Wow, I love that. So I feel that you live a very soft life. and based on what you're talking about, tell us about your book. I brought you on because of your book, From Demotion to Promotion. And reading the book, you're at that point where you don't care who judge you. You live a very soft life, as far as I feel, for a male. And a lot of people think men can't live a soft life. They think it's a female or a femininity type thing. What would you say to people who think a soft life is just for women?
Men are, and again, you have to, as a man, get to a point in life where you're confident and secure about your manhood. A lot. I'm going to give you an example. We grow up, from boys to men, and it's not masculine to make a comment about another man as it relates to his looks. Like, it's not considered manly to say another man is attractive. Right. I can boldly and confidently say that I think Denzel Washington is an attractive man. Right. One, because I don't care what you think or feel about that comment. How you judge me based on that does not matter. Right. If that is viewed upon by a woman and or a man as me not being masculine, then so be it. Okay. Was I always there? Absolutely not. That came along with being secure and becoming secure about my manhood. And so when you become secure about your manhood, then you can express your vulnerability. Okay. You can express that, that there are emotional times in your life that you might come to tears. Okay. You get to a point where you understand that tears are And crying is therapeutic. You feel better after you cry.
Right.
And you don't have a problem expressing that. You don't have a problem displaying that.
Right.
That level of vulnerability, again, comes with growth and maturity and time.
Okay.
But it also encompasses being very, very secure about your manhood. And a lot of men don't get there. They never get there. One, because they're concerned about what another man and or another woman will think about them.
Okay.
And so you can't be concerned about those and their perception. You have to internalize it as, this is who I am. And you have to be very, very confident in doing so.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. And we may veer off from some of my questions, but what was the most unexpected challenge you encountered while writing your book, from demotion to promotion?
It took me right back to the situation. You know, when I finally realized that I should have sought out some therapy years ago and didn't. But when I did, and what the therapist shared with me is that journaling is therapeutic. And so obviously the writing process, it brought back a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling. And it took me right back to the moment.
Okay.
But I felt better afterwards. So the book and the completion of the book was almost like my last session, so to speak.
Okay.
And so the most challenging part was those feelings and those emotions, you know, coming right back. I mean, the feeling was identical as, you know, we went step by step, you know, about what happened in the experience. And so while I had not, you know, revisited to that point and being that exact, talking through it took me right back to that moment in terms of what I was feeling. So I had an opportunity to feel it all over again.
Wow.
And revisiting that, the differences in revisiting it as I have gone through the process, successfully gone through the process, and feeling it when I was going through the process, obviously there was a distinct difference between the two. Because at the time when I was going through it, I didn't know how I would get through it. Revisiting it and feeling it again, I was speaking from, or I was at a point where I had already gone through it. And so that was a different feeling, and it was something that, you know, obviously something to compare, but it was a totally different feeling of having experienced it and wondering and having that fear of the unknown, and now knowing what I experienced and then looking at the outcomes. And so that was very, very unique within itself. But yeah, just being able to revisit it and just saying, man, I can remember when this happened, what happened the next day. I can almost remember exactly what was going to happen the next week and the next month.
Wow.
And so it was, but it was good. It was good. It was therapeutic, and it was very, very helpful to get through the process. But all in all, it was therapeutic.
Okay, so writing this book, you went through the feelings, but you knew what was coming up.
Absolutely.
So it was revisiting everything. So it was totally different than your first book that you wrote.
Absolutely.
From Remedial to Remarkable.
Exactly.
Which was an excellent book. That's another book you all have to get. But reading your first book, then reading this one, I could feel the emotion in this book. And you know, like you, I knew the outcome, but just reading it, it just made you want more, want more.
Right.
This by far is an excellent book, and I know I can't wait to see what you do with it, which is the question I'm going to ask you about later. Can you share a moment from your personal life that inspired this book particularly? I mean, I know why it came about, but what really inspired you to do it the way that you did it this time?
So people say that parents live vicariously through their children. One of the things that I talk about in the book, you know, my son, every morning when I dropped him off at school, when he exited the car, he had to repeat our mantra, which was work hard and watch good things happen.
Wow.
So every morning he got to the school, he get out the car, give him a kiss on his cheek, and hey, work hard and watch good things happen. That was our exit every morning.
Wow.
One day he got in the car, and this is during that time, by the time it got to media proportions and then on the television, news stations, and he got in the car as a 10-year-old, 9-year-old and said, "Dad, one of my friends said that they saw you on the news."
Wow.
And I said, what 9-year-old is watching the news? Mm-hmm. What that told me was that young man, his friend, overheard a conversation or was told by his mom and or dad that, hey, your classmate, that's his daddy. Mm-hmm. That was an adult telling a 9 or 10-year-old that your classmate's daddy's all over the news. Mm-hmm. So I had to explain to my son, who was 9 years old at the time, about what was happening, because I knew that there were teachers in his classes that may have known. Mm-hmm. There were students, his classmates, that may have known. So I wanted to give him enough information so that, not to defend me, but he would understand. Mm-hmm. First thing I said, hey, your daddy didn't do anything wrong, although it may have appeared to be that way.
Right.
I was demoted. That's not going to impact you or your sister. Mm-hmm. But as I've told you and to share with you in our mantra every morning, I'll be back. Work hard and watch good things happen. So along the way, the 3 years that I had to serve as an assistant principal after being demoted, when I was promoted to principal, I went back to the story and the situation. I said, you remember 3 years ago when I was demoted? Mm-hmm. I just got promoted to principal. Mm-hmm. You remember? When you work hard, good things happen. Mm-hmm. My son plays baseball. We use that same mantra when he struggled and or failed in the sport or in the game of baseball, because baseball has the highest propensity of failure like any other sport. So when he failed, I would always tell him, remember the mantra. And so again, the promotion back to principal, the promotion back to regional superintendent, I revisited again, remember? Mm-hmm. 4 years ago when I was demoted and all in the headlines, work hard and watch good things happen. That's what got me back here. Mm-hmm. So after he graduated from high school, he said, Dad, I want a tattoo. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, well, first, thank you for asking me, because you're 18, you don't need my permission. But let's talk about location of this tattoo first. Right. He said he wanted it on his inner forearm. I said, well, what do you want? He said, I want a quote. I said, okay, what is that? He said, work hard and watch good things happen. Gosh. At 9 or 10, when this was our daily routine, I didn't know if that really, really resonated with him. Mm-hmm. 7, 8 years later, it meant so much to him, obviously, that he wanted it tattooed on his forearm. Gosh. So that story, that journey, mine being personal, and trying to instill in him that you're going to experience failure. Right. But in order to overcome failure, you have to continue to work hard. And so as my mentor, Dr. Percy Mack, would share with me, said, listen, as long as you have skills and ability, you can overcome anything. Right. Someone's going to need those skills and ability one day. Just keep working hard. And so that inspired me to, at some point along the way, I had to tell my side. Right. Because people would look and say, hey man, you're not going to say anything about this. You're not going to sue. Well, I'm smart enough. Hell, I'm not going to sue an organization that's still giving me a check. Right. So that wasn't the route. Which you could have very well did. I could. Anybody can file a lawsuit, obviously. Right. But I just didn't feel like that was the right. There was no strategic plan. Right. For what I had gone through. Mm-hmm. Nobody that I knew professionally or personally had gone through it. So nobody could really give me any advice. Everybody's, man, you ought to sue them. Right. I needed to work. I had 2 children. Mm-hmm. Okay? I couldn't work. I had to do the noble thing and understand that as a parent, I have to provide for my children. Right. So I wasn't going to put myself in a situation where if I make a mistake, they get rid of me. And I couldn't afford the fact of having a termination on my record and not be able to take care of my 2 children. Right. So I did that and made that decision and accepted that demotion for them. Right. Wait. So let's back up. So you went from making high 6 figures. No, I wouldn't say high 6 figures. Maybe I probably about $125,000 a year. Okay. To about 88. To 88. Right. So you went from district superintendent
demoted to
assistant principal.
Assistant principal.
Correct.
Then you worked your way back up to principal to your current position,
That's right.
which is deputy superintendent.
Correct.
Most people would have given up. It would have been the end because their pride.
Right.
And one thing that I read about in your book, how you humbled yourself. And a lot of people talked about how they didn't understand or couldn't figure out what was going on in your head because every time they approached you, you were so calm. Mm-hmm. How did you do that? And I mean, like, what was you feeling?
Yeah. So my first day, so I've always been the person to inspire and instill confidence in other people. Mm-hmm. I was always the motivator, keeping people motivated.
Right.
But people didn't give me that back in return. Because I had always been that individual, they just said, oh man, you're going to be all right.
But they didn't know how.
They didn't know how. You're absolutely right.
Because you were the motivator.
I was the motivator, but I needed to be motivated.
You needed to be motivated.
Absolutely.
And that's what people don't realize. Strong people also need
That's right.
motivation.
That's right. But all I got was, man, you'll be okay. You'll bounce back. And so it was an opportunity, though, for me to walk in the light of tragedy.
Right.
You know, I always talked it, but now, okay, let's see if you can walk what you talk.
Right.
And so I knew that I had to keep walk with my dignity intact. And I was not going to allow for that to show outwardly. Mm-hmm. So my first day on the job as an assistant principal, on my way to that school, you know, I knew that everybody was going to be looking for me to be this disgruntled employee.
Right.
You know, they thought that I was, you know, going to be toxic. Mm-hmm. And I knew not to give them that. But I said, you know what? If they're looking, let me give them something to look at. Mm-hmm. I'm going to show people how to walk in the spirit of travesty. And so that's how I internalized it. That's how I worked through it. And every day, you know, I gave them my best. I went to work. I did my job, and it was. Yes, I was hurting on the inside. I was bleeding on the inside, but on the outside, I knew I had to be an example and live what it was that I had always spoken into the lives, into the ears, and into the hearts of people.
Wow.
And so, yes, that was difficult, but you know, it became the storyline. Mm-hmm. People began to talk about, man, I can't believe how well you're dealing with this. Mm-hmm. They couldn't believe that it was a slap in the face and knocked down, but obviously, you know, you got to get back up. You know, if somebody pulled me down, yes, and knocked me down, it was on them, but I have to get back up on my own. And so when I got back up, I knew that I had to continue to put the work in. I knew that I was going to be given an opportunity at some point, but I knew that it was going to probably be a challenging situation because those are the schools that I'd always worked at. But interestingly enough, though, it really became the storyline. Man, I can't believe Simpson dealing with that like that.
Right.
You know, they never saw. They never saw a negative or a mean spirit.
Yeah.
They never saw an attitude.
Headline
Absolutely.
and couldn't get it.
And so I didn't give them any ammunition. All they got was, man, Simpson doing his thing. He's doing what he does. He's doing and completing the task that's been assigned to him. And so I was patient. I was patient in knowing that, you know, my opportunity and my time was going to come. Right. But I knew that when it did come, and if it ever manifested itself, then I had to make sure that I did not give them any reason whatsoever to not give me that opportunity.
So tell me this, do you think a lot of people was celebrating your demise?
Absolutely. Hitting cartwheels and backhand flips. Absolutely.
And they never expected you to come back on top.
Absolutely. It's one thing about, you know, when you're confident and people, you know, sometimes people, you know, misunderstand that as arrogance. Right. And I understand that.
Right.
People have called me arrogant or assumed that I was arrogant. And then later on they say, you know what? You're cool.
Right.
What does that mean? Well, you're not like I thought you were. Well,
Well, what you thought I was? You didn't know me.
Confidence and arrogance are first cousins.
Right.
It just it's subjective. And so once people got to know me, then they understood that as being confidence. But with confident people, a lot of people, they enjoy and celebrate the demise or the failure of confident and or successful people. For whatever reason, it becomes celebratory of their failure for whatever. I don't know what that's about, because I've always been happy for individuals who experience some success.
Right.
I also feel bad for people who experience failure, because I know what that's like, and I know what that's going to do to them and what they're going to go through. And everyone is not equipped to overcome failure. And so I have a heart for those that are not successful as well. But yeah, there were probably some pep rallies out there. It was and that's okay. I didn't spend my time in being concerned. But so I always it reminds me of the quote is, while you might have celebrated my setback, you're going to be confused about my comeback. And so I just live by that. You'll see in some of those same individuals. It might have taken me 5 years, but some of those same individuals, that when I went back to assistant principal, many of them were principals and probably, serving in another capacity at the district level. Not only did I catch them, I passed them. And so just give me time. I'll come back. And so, but yeah, I'm certain that there was some folk out there celebrating.
So tell me this: the same people who demoted you, shortly after that, karma. What's the saying? Karma is a bitch.
Right.
Stuff came back to haunt them, right?
Well, I wouldn't say it came back to haunt them. I don't think so. I don't think it was personal. It wasn't personal.
No. It wasn't personal.
It wasn't personal. I think people were assigned, they were in a role and they were in positions, and they were some, I believe there was some pressure to make some decisions. I mean, the district was toxic at the time. And so some of these same people I'm friends with today. A matter of fact, all of them. I mean, there's no ill will toward any of them. I think that at the time, because of the culture of the district, it was almost a situation that whatever bubbled up or presented itself as an eyesore, that they had to distance themselves from that. And so I believe ultimately that's what happened. I believe, in their heart of hearts, they realized that I didn't do anything, so disharming that warranted that. But I believe that their hands were tied.
But okay, so that's what I don't understand. You got people that ride with you like 4 flat tires, but soon as something hit the fan, they start distancing themselves away from you. How did you feel like? Because if it was, I know if it was them, you would have stuck behind them, and you would have, supported them all the way in something you believe in, because you go hard for what you believe in.
That's right.
How did it make you feel knowing that these are my colleagues, my friends, my confidants, my mentors, and they've turned their back, not necessarily turn their back, but distance themselves from you? How did that?
I think
when you needed the most.
Yeah. So I think everybody was afraid, because I think it was the fear came from they couldn't believe that happened or that was done. But it's just like when in anything, when you see something happen to someone and you start, it becomes personal. You don't want it to happen to you. And so you distance yourself from it because you don't want to get caught up.
Right.
These people have families, and I understood that.
Okay.
I had to accept the fact that, look, these folk were. It's almost like, if you have siblings, regardless of whether you saw your brother or sister do something wrong that might have warranted a whooping, you were still mad with your mom or dad, whoever whooped them. You were still, because that's your brother.
Right.
And so you felt a certain kind of way, and so that fear that is created. It says, okay, well, if you don't want to get a whooping, you distance yourself and you separate yourself from it. So I think most of it came from that.
Okay.
But then just that old adage, and we know it and understand it, that, you know, when people go through something, you know, people run from you instead of to you.
Right.
That's just the unfortunately, you know, the humanistic behavior. Most people don't run to people in the times of need. They
Right.
run from people when they're in need. And so I had to accept that was a reality, because that was, you know, probably while I had experienced failure, obviously,
Right.
you know, but at a public, on a public spectacle, on a public level, you know, it's like, I remember Steve Harvey saying this years ago, that if you're a popular person, your success and your failure is played out in the eyes of the public.
Right.
If no one knows you and you fail, I mean,
it don't matter.
It doesn't matter. but if you fail and you have this level of popularity and you're up and it's public. I was in a public position,
Right.
and a high profile position, and so my failure was played out in the eyes of the public.
Okay.
And so while it was played out in the eyes of the public, then, you know, my failure and how I walked with failure would also be played out in the eyes of the public. So I took advantage of that same public failure to take advantage and turn that into the public success. So as they saw the demise, I said, okay, well, I'm gonna make sure you all see the rise.
Wow.
Obviously, there was no attention given to that piece.
Yes.
That's what henceforth the book. So I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to tell my
your
side and my side of the story. But it's not just about the story. The story is just a framework.
Right.
Others out there that experience some failure, whether it be personally or professionally, I wanted to provide a guide that I didn't have. I wanted to provide a strategic plan that I did not have. And so while I use the story to talk about my failure or my demotion or my demise, their takeaways, their examples, their suggestions, their ideas on how you bounce back, because ultimately you have to be able to rebuild, rebrand, and rebound.
Right.
And if you don't do those types of things, and there's no one there to teach you or hold your hand.
Right, because every situation is
Right,
different.
and so people will reach out to me after that. People will reach out to me, I mean, strangers, and who had gone through something and say, man, look, how did you do that? And I'd have conversations via email or via phone call with complete strangers and just, you know, teaching them and sharing with them along the way, look, this is what's about to happen. You got a few more cuts coming, so you know you're gonna bleed a little bit longer,
Right.
but you're gonna get to the point where the bleeding is gonna stop.
Okay.
And once that stops, then this is what you need to do. So that's what henceforth the book. It turned me into, and so when I talk about, you know, demotion to promotion, and then the whole birth of this the simple factor, you know. I believe in restorative practices. While that's a concept that we use, you know, in the public school system, it's deeply rooted just in basically giving a person a second chance.
Given a second chance.
It's just before I became engrossed with the restorative practices, I always felt like people deserve second chances.
Okay.
But restorative practices is about second chances, and so you have to have what we call grace. From a humanistic perspective and view that human beings are going to make mistakes.
Right.
My experience, though, is that we, African Americans, we're harder.
On each other.
We're much, much more punitive on each other than we are anyone else.
Right.
I believe that the chances that I might have been given could have very, very likely come from outside of my race, and that's unfortunate.
Right.
I have been in public education for 36 years. I've been at the district level for over 25 years, and I've seen multiple people that have made mistakes that deserve second chances, but they weren't granted those second chances. I have a heart for that. That bothers me. It bothers me that we have people in positions that are making decisions that can negatively impact their lives and the lives of their children and their families, and because of a mistake they made. But yet I see others that have made similar and or mistakes that are much, much worse being given chances. And so I don't understand why, I don't understand that altogether, why we don't get that. But being in a position, I want to make sure that I can influence and help and provide opportunities for those, because had it not been for Michael Thurman, then I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
Okay.
There might be a demotion to a promotion, but had it not been for a Michael Thurman who was bold, who was courageous, who was respected, who had credibility,
Right.
and said that man didn't deserve that, but I had to work. I earned it.
Right.
But he still had to have the courage to say to a board that I'm recommending this guy for this position because he's earned it. So it has to be a person that, even though you can go through this process, still has to be someone to speak favor on your name.
Right. And I'm glad that it was who it was.
Right.
Because like you said, very well, lots of people talked about the situation.
Right.
They knew you were well qualified for various positions.
Right.
But because it took a brother to give you that second chance.
That's right.
And he didn't care what anybody said.
That's exactly right.
Or any backflap.
That's right.
He was going to stand 10 toes down.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, it's you know, that's what birthed the simple factor from restorative practices, being trauma informed, because that was a traumatic situation.
Right.
And we deal with and we see children who are dealing with adverse childhood experiences every day. Our children today different from yesterday. We call it adultified.
Right.
As a child, they have to deal with adult situations, and that shouldn't be the experience.
Right.
You know, I liken it to the difference between when we talk about some of our schools and school communities being in poverty. You know, but poverty today is different from poverty yesterday.
Right.
You know, you got a good times poverty, and then you have a precious poverty.
Right.
You know, good times poverty, you still had a family. Mom and dad at home, husband and wife, a family. You knew JJ wanted to be an artist. You knew Thelma wanted to be a physician. You know, Michael was an intellect. They might not have had much, but they had love. But they didn't have adultified situations. They didn't have to deal with adult situations as children.
Right.
But then you go to Precious. Teenage mother, sexually abused by a mother's boyfriend. Any and all of the things that an adult experienced, she experienced that as a child,
right,
along with the poverty. So those adverse childhood experiences will negatively impact the way you behave,
right,
the way you perform academically, and the way you learn. And so what if you don't have a teacher that understands that? What if you don't have an administrator that understands that? And you internalize this child misbehaving because they chose to?
Right.
No, something happened at home or in the community the day or night before. And so all of this birthed the simple factor from the standpoint of you have to be able to reach before you teach. Instead of calling them teachers, we need to call them reachers.
Reachers.
Because if you can't reach a child,
right, how
you going to teach a child?
You're absolutely correct.
So.
Yeah, I was in the school system for about 3-4 years before going back into my career. And I always give teachers their props because I walk their shoes. I know you have to reach children.
That's right.
And even more now, because like you said, it was no such thing as therapy back during our time. Now you got kids that are going through situations and things. When I was a child, we were able to be a child.
That's right.
We played outside. We did all the kid things. Now you have children raising themselves.
That's right.
And they're being introduced to adult things at an early age.
That's right.
So a lot of the trauma is happening much earlier than it happened in our day.
That's right.
So I always say, if I'm ever on a board, I think teachers deserve way more. They're underpaid, highly respected by some, not who they need to be respected by, but they're definitely underpaid because they are the parents. The teachers spend more time with the kids. Teachers, principals, all the educators spend more time with kids than the actual parents.
That's right. That's right.
And I don't see why people don't realize that.
Yeah. As a society, it blows me away, though, to think that there's not the level of respect,
right,
and acumen given to educators like we do athletes and entertainers.
Right.
Because they all had to go through a teacher at some point in their lives.
The teacher had to teach them how to do what they're doing.
Absolutely. So when it comes to we shouldn't be celebrating every year which school district or school system offers the largest pay raise. That shouldn't be something that we should be celebrating right now.
Right.
Teachers, if they wanted to, if teachers wanted to go back to school for advanced degrees, I feel like it should be paid for. They shouldn't have to pay for advanced degrees.
Absolutely.
Because going back to school to seek advanced degrees, honing their skills, growing professionally so that they can provide a better service and a better instructional experience or teaching experience to a child, that only increases outcomes and puts places a child in an opportunity for them to be successful.
Right.
But teachers have to go back to school, or educators have to go back to school to seek advanced degrees on their time, either after school hours,
right.
Traveling from one city to the next on weekends and or holidays, finding babysitters for their children, but yet they're still expected to come to school and teach 180 days. We're still not at a place in our society where we realize or recognize that if not for a teacher, if not for educators, none of this would exist.
Right.
And so but the respect factor also, it hinges and lies on us as educators as well. We have to speak boldly and proudly about our profession. When I first started teaching, a teacher asked me, why did I wear a shirt and tie and suit every day? I wanted to make sure that those fifth graders looked at me and the profession of a teacher and saw how proud I was as a classroom teacher for them to be able to say, I want to be a teacher just like Mr. Simpson.
Right.
And so I assumed and I internalized the profession of being a teacher just as comparable as that of being an attorney, of being a physician.
Right.
And so we have to believe that ourselves, that what we do and what we offer makes all of this work. And we have to be as confident, and we have to celebrate ourselves, regardless of whether someone else celebrates us or not. I believe when you do what's righteous, the money is going to come. We shouldn't be begging for more money.
Right.
Teachers shouldn't be begging for more money from the feds, from Congress, whether it be state representatives. They should be figuring out ways every year to make salaries with teachers not more competitive to other school districts, but competitive to other salaries and other professions. Shouldn't be we shouldn't be celebrating who's paying the most money this particular school year. That's crazy, because all it's doing is creating a teacher carousel.
Right. And the teachers are jumping ship.
That's exactly right.
And the passion is gone.
Yep.
Is what I see. And I hear a lot of colleagues of mine that are teachers. A lot of them don't feel supported by, I know they're there because of the kids. And they have to be.
Right.
Because like you said, the pay isn't where it should be, but they're passionate about it.
That's
and
right.
for the teachers that are really passionate about their job, what advice would you give them?
So, we're in a space now where in order to teach, to be an effective teacher and to love what you're doing and be passionate about it, you have to be very, very skillful. But before that, you have to be socially and emotionally well. I mean, you have to. We have sick people trying to teach sick people. We have to help the helpers. What that looks like is providing them with all of the skills and all of the training to be able to meet the needs of those children. But if there are challenges that are bracing the threshold of that classroom door and it's foreign to you, then you can't help that child. If you can't help that child, then obviously you can't teach that child. So when we start talking about and considering all of what's required of that, what does that look like? It looks like social emotional learning that many of the school districts have implemented. And social emotional learning begins with building positive relationships with children based on genuine love, care, and concern. They talk about health and decision making, relationship skills, social development. Those are some of the competencies that are embedded in what social emotional learning is all about. But it's starting your class out, hypothetically, starting your class out every day asking the question, who's ready to learn and who's not ready to learn?
Okay.
If you're not ready to learn, raise your hand. And for that child that's not ready to learn because something may have happened, then take him or her outside the classroom and have a brief conversation, because sometimes all it takes is a conversation. But just having an emotional check of your children in the classroom before you start teaching. Hey, y'all good? What's going on? What happened last night? Let's talk about that. Taking that moment.
They want to be heard.
That's it. That's being, but as the teacher, I have to be well. Meaning I'm giving so much love to these children every single day. But I have love to give at home too, because I'm a spouse, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a parent. And you don't want that love tank to be on empty by Wednesday because you have Thursday and Friday left.
Right.
You want to be able to bring some love home and you want to be able to take some love back.
Right.
In order to do that, then you're going to have that social emotional well-being so that you are equipped with that tank full of love so that you can give that to both your children, the children that you teach, and the children that you have at home, as well as your spouse. And then equipping the teachers with tools so that they can meet those challenges as they come into the schoolhouse.
Right. Do y'all have therapy in the school? Therapists?
We don't.
Okay. Do you think that is necessary in today's world to have a therapist in every school?
It's a must. It's a must. We've got to have it.
Right.
It's so the counselors, what we know as counselors, whose ultimately responsibility, for years has been to make sure that your summary of credits and you are on track for graduation.
Right.
But now there's a lot more to counseling. It's probably more guidance.
Right.
More counseling than guidance. Guidance was making sure that you were on track for graduation. Now it's counseling. But if the counselors don't have that mental health background, then you have, again, all of these sick people in the school.
Yeah.
Or in these school buildings. And there's no one that can meet their challenges because no one's prepared. From the paraprofessional to the principal, from the custodian to the cafeteria worker, no one's prepared to meet the mental health challenges that exist. So yes, we desperately need at least one mental health counselor in every school. And I say at least one.
At least,
the larger the school, the more the therapist. That would make a tremendous difference. I know they're doing this mandated in some states. I don't know if it's gotten. There's been money set aside for the state, but I'm talking about an investment to where the state will fund at least one mental health counselor in every elementary, middle, and high school in the state of Georgia. That would be phenomenal. That would make a difference. Truly make a difference.
Wow. Okay, let me ask you this question. I know you heard about, maybe you haven't, but on social media it was trending about that teacher who had a hair appointment. He was getting his braids taken out, and the students were helping him. And he had a lot of backlash about it.
Right.
But here's my opinion. I think, one, I don't think it was inappropriate because it was after they had finished the work. The students all obviously respected him. And he had a hair appointment. They was like, let us help you. You know what I mean? But some people was saying that it was inappropriate. He shouldn't get that close to the students. But the parents was defending him, taking up for him. What are your thoughts on that? As a male teacher and you have your female students taking your braids out. It sounds worse than what it really was. Absolutely. But I understood it at the end after I saw, and he talked about how his students, they finished their work, everything was done, and it was the last 15 minutes, so whatever.
So we're at a point in a place in time where you just can't give anybody any ammunition because people are looking for something.
They're looking for it.
Had this happened 15, 20 years ago, we wouldn't know about it because there was no social media. Right. It wouldn't have been an issue. But because now everyone has a camera, because now everyone has access to put anything out there that might have been private public, then you're going to hear about it. And then, so that's the differences, and I talk about this in my book, the difference between the courts and the court of public opinion. He didn't violate a law, so that wouldn't make it to the court. But in the court of public opinion, they think it's inappropriate. Absolutely. The girl's touching him. This and I don't see that. I feel like they respect him as a teacher because they could have been like, we ain't helping you do nothing. And so they respect him as a teacher. Right. The parents talked about how excellent of a teacher he has a rapport with all his students, male and female. Right. It just so happened that was recorded. Right. So but he recorded it. Right. So that's today. In 1991, when I started teaching, my first class was 21 boys and 9 girls. I designated a male student to be the last to walk out of my class every day. This one young man knew that he had to be the last one to walk out of my class. I did not want a female to be the last one in my classroom. When I became an assistant principal, I never met with a female student in my office with the door closed. My secretary, right outside my office, had to be in the office when I met with that female student.
Okay.
When I became a principal, that was the similar and same practice. I went above and beyond, and this is before social media.
Right.
I went above and beyond because I didn't want to give anyone any ammunition.
Right.
If I did that, and I was paranoid about it in 1991, and it's now 2024 when everyone has a camera and everything is public.
Right.
May not have been anything wrong with that, but when you put yourself out there in the court of public opinion, then the court of public opinion are gonna weigh on your case.
Right.
And because of that, that ammunition, this is a male, these are females.
Right.
He's an adult, this is a child. Some of the things that we did for our teachers years ago, it wouldn't be accepted today in the court of public opinion. And we have to know and understand that. I wish that brother well, and I hope he gets beyond that and there are no repercussions. But I would also encourage him, don't put yourself in that situation. Regardless to how clean, how fair, or how lawful it may have, don't give these folk any ammunition because if you do, they're gonna shoot you.
Now, I had a friend, it's interesting you say that. I had a friend, colleague actually, who some students decided they were going to write a statement and say that he inappropriately touched them. Even though they knew they were lying, they wrote statements to try to get him, because like you said, you don't put yourself in the situation. They wrote statements saying that he inappropriately touched them. It was one parent that called up to that school and said, my daughter came home and told me that her friends told her to write a false statement about this teacher. And they was like, oh, well, we did. She said, no, I want you to retract that because y'all are playing with people's lives.
That's right.
That man didn't do anything. My daughter told me everything that was going on, and she called the parents and said, you need to check your daughter because whatever he did or they didn't like, it was the point that you was trying to mess up his career. That could have destroyed his whole life. And because of that parent, she said, he has a family, he has a livelihood. Y'all don't play like that.
That's right.
That's one thing you're not gonna do. But what if her daughter didn't come home and tell her what happened?
Yeah, it would have been
his life would have been destroyed.
Right. He would have social media, mainstream media, an investigation would have been done.
Right. Well, that's what they had started
Yeah.
doing, the investigation.
And then he would have been acquitted. But yet, when you Googled his name,
it would have come up.
That's right.
She and because of that parent, she fought with them and said, "You don't mess with people's livelihood." Right. She had no rapport with the teacher. Like that. She just felt as though this is a black man trying to live an honest living, make an honest living, and y'all are trying to destroy.
And because he was probably holding those students to a certain standard of expectation.
And that's what it was.
They wanted to get rid of him.
And she asked her daughter, why did you do that? Well, she just asked me. She was my friend. She just asked me. Yeah. She said, so you lied. And so so, okay. I got two more questions for you before I let you go. Do you think a lot of men would rather be miserable than vulnerable? And the reason I asked that question is because you mentioned in your book that you didn't really let people know how you was feeling. When they came up to you, you would be like, I'm good, I'm cool. When they would ask you, how are you doing? What's going on? I'm good, I'm cool. All the time you was walking during the demotion stage.
Right. It was probably too much to explain.
Okay.
I was my vulnerability existed with people or a person who had time to hear it. I mentioned Randall, one of my best friends, my running partner. when we would run up and down Cascade, which took typically about 40, 45 minutes. Well, he ain't have no choice but to listen. Although our lives have been played out, on Cascade as we ran up and down that for 30 years, but he listened. And so, when people might have asked me that, did they really have time to really listen and understand what I was going through? We were in a work setting. It might have been during class change. It might have been during transition at the end of the school day. So when people ask that question, I think most times people really didn't want to know the depths of how you were feeling.
Right.
They just wanted, it was just kind of like a once over. You good?
Question.
Yeah, you good. Right. And so, and that's what I gave them, because neither them nor myself had the time to really, really explain it. And then secondly, the vulnerability comes with a relationship. You don't open up to people that you don't have a relationship with, particularly those that don't have a vested interest and really, really care about you.
Right.
My vulnerability comes out or is expressed when, hey man, I'm coming by to pick you up and meet me here. Let's go out. Let's go out and grab a bite to eat.
Right.
We're going to spend an hour and a half, and we can have some real in-depth conversation about what's going on with you in your life and what's going on with mine. But while we're in a professional setting and we at work,
right.
It was just, hey, what's up, bro? You good? Yeah. And so,
okay, I think I get that part. I guess I'm talking about your family.
Okay.
Like your mother.
Right.
First,
right.
like when your mother would ask you, because you talked about how because of the embarrassment you brought upon her, you didn't want her to worry.
Right.
Or, parents worry about kids.
That's exactly right.
So did you keep yourself in a miserable state to protect her?
So I didn't want to give her I didn't want to burden her anymore with what I was going through. My focus and my emphasis is on meeting the challenge.
Okay.
And proving myself to be one that could overcome it. My goal every day was to, I'm going to give her a reason to be able to stick her chest out again.
Okay.
That's my mom. Regardless of what has happened to me, I'm going to be her son.
Exactly.
She didn't look at me or look upon me. But, as I talk about it in the first book, the last chapter is called Bragging Rights. And while my mom never went around bragging about any of my successes, but I always wanted to make her, give her something to brag about if someone else wanted to start bragging about their children.
Right.
And so while I know that was public, and I know that while many may not have said anything to her, I know she was wearing that because that's what parents do.
Okay.
They wear the hurt of their children, and I didn't want to provide any more hurt that was already that had already taken place. So I shielded her from that, and I only made her a part of the successes along the way. Fast forward 3 years after that, when I was invited to attend the Teacher of Excellence, or Educator of Excellence ceremony, when we awarded the District-wide Teacher of the Year and the District-wide Principal of the Year. I was in the running for the District-wide Principal of the Year, so I took her with me.
Okay.
And when I was named District-wide Principal of the Year, that was my identification for her to be able to say, okay, hey, stick your chest out again.
Okay.
And so it was just the continued efforts and work to give her those nuggets. This is what I want you to know about. That other stuff, I'm gonna keep that from you because, my mom's old school. That's what they did back in the day. Essence, look, you're gonna either do one or two things, worry or pray. You gotta make a decision.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done.
Right.
You say you're gonna just pray about it and leave it alone, but you still worry, the reality of it.
Right.
And I know that as a parent, and I knew that she was concerned about me. And that's why she would call and ask, hey, you okay?
Okay.
And all I needed to give her at that time, and I felt so that I can shield her away from that, was, no, I'm good. I got it. I'm gonna be okay.
A mother knows.
That's right. They know.
They
and
know
she
their
knew.
children.
She knew.
All right. So usually when a man loses something or is stripped of his identity, does that emasculate a man?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And I can only use my personal situation.
Right.
A leadership and serving in a leadership capacity. I always tell people, if you really truly want to define your level and quality of leadership, is to go through something or have that position or have that title and or position taken away.
Okay.
and see how many people follow you then. Take your badge off, put it on the table. See how influential you are at that point.
Okay.
If people only follow you, if you're only influenced by that title, see, the title is only an indication of what you do.
Right.
It shouldn't define who you are. My identification was solid. My identity was solid. The title was gone. But I stood on who I was.
Gotcha.
I stood on the person that I was and not the title. And so when the title came back, I didn't have to make any transition because of who I was. I say no to that because I've seen some who need that title. And when that title is taken away, when that title is no longer there, then you feel less of who you are because you lost that identity. It's what happens when you get caught up in that title. You have to get caught up into who you are.
Right.
You have to believe more so in your accomplishments. That only identifies who you are. The title is what you do. And so, yes, you will lose that. You will be emasculated.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
If you allow for that title, that position to define who you are.
Gotcha.
And for those that happens to, and I've seen that happen, and it's real. It's real. Some people need those titles. They really do, and that's unfortunate.
Okay. This has been great. I mean, I was looking forward to this interview, but this last question, baby, and I know you know it's coming. I know you know it's coming.
I don't know, but we gonna see.
If your book were adapted into a film, who would your dream cast members be?
Lawrence Tate.
Lawrence Tate.
Lawrence Tate has to play me.
Lawrence Tate, why?
You know, I've always admired him,
Okay.
but the way he just continues to reinvent himself
Yes.
in every single role and make that role come to life. And he's also maintained, you know, the physical appearance from the role that he might have played in Inkwell, I believe, which was probably 20, 25 years ago, until, you know, the role that, not most recently, but I think it might have been in Girls Trip. Just a very, very talented, very, very versatile individual. But I believe, you know, that could, you know, I loved his role in Love Jones as well. You know, because he was writing a book.
That's when he was my man.
But yeah, he would have to play. He would have to play me. I believe he would kill it. I believe he would kill it.
I love it. You do know this is gonna be your story is gonna be a book, right? It's gonna be a movie. I just want to be an extra.
You know what? You know, if that happens, then I would be shocked. I would be surprised. Honestly, I would.
Let me tell you. Let me tell the audience. You have got to. Let me tell you something. Get this book, and not only this one, read the first one so that you can understand why this second one was written. But this is an excellent book, an easy read, quick read, and you have it on Audible too, right?
It will be next week.
Next week?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like to drive and ride and listen.
Yep.
I don't even listen to the radio.
Yeah.
I listen to podcasts or either my Audible books. So...
and in my voice.
Your voice.
My voice.
How long did it take you to?
About 18 hours.
18 hours. He has read the book to you. Okay. So let me tell you something. Y'all get this book. Dr. Simpson, I am so honored to have you on this show.
My pleasure.
I definitely want you back as soon as this blow up.
Okay.
So I can say I told you so. But this has been an honor. I wish you well, much success in the future.
Thank you.
Anything I can do to help promote your book, just let me know. You're always welcome here at Soft Life Secrets.
Yeah, well, that help, the help that you've extended is certainly appreciated. Thanks for.
You know, I'm always willing to help.
Thanks for the opportunity. Just so that the audience knows, speaking engagements, consulting,
yes,
leadership development, all of that, you know, is part and falls up under the Simple Factor umbrella. So, you know, in any time that, there's a need, whether it's a school district, a church, organization.
How can they find you?
TheSimpleFactor.com, my website, TheSimpleFactor.com.
TheSimpleFactor.com is his website.
That's it.
He's available for speaking engagements and anything else you need him for, advice. Again, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Where can they follow you on social media? Instagram, Facebook?
Instagram, Facebook, under Dr. Ralph Simpson, The Simple Factor. Instagram, Dr. R. Simpson, Dr. Ralph L. Simpson. Twitter or X and LinkedIn under Ralph Simpson.
Okay.
Let's put Ralph Simpson in there. I'm going to pop up.
He's going to pop up. All right, y'all. Have a good one.